The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited to be joined by this evening's special featured guest, Joe Pilcavage. He is the VP of Marketing at Blue Tees Golf. Joe is an award-winning creative leader who's spent the last 15-plus years turning bold ideas into business results. And as the VP of Marketing at Blue Tees Golf, one of the fastest-growing golf technology brands in the world, Joe is helping redefine what a modern golf brand can be. Leading creative brand and growth strategy across physical and digital product experiences. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Ted.
Well,
Glad to be here.
I appreciate it. I've obviously had you guys on the show before, meaning Blue Tees, and you guys are definitely a great company. But what I want to do is if we can start, two things I want to do. First off, I want to talk a little bit about you, besides obviously the intro that we just did. And what your interest in golf, when your first early memories of golf were for you, if you played, and when you got started, and then we'll talk a little bit about sort of the history of Blue Tees.
Sure, sounds great. So I guess we're going to jump right in and talk about golf, huh?
Yeah.
So it's funny, I think for me, probably not unlike a lot of guys my age. I think golf was one of those things that I was introduced to from my dad, right? It was one of those bonding activities we would do every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I had played all sorts of sports growing up as a kid. I did baseball and soccer and track. And there was something about golf that was just a little bit different, right? It was a little bit of a change of pace. It was something that we can have a conversation around together, right? Really start to remember some of those moments, which you don't necessarily get when you're in the thrill of the moment in a fast-paced, competitive sport or a team sport, if you will. So, I think it started there, early on, and then from there just kind of dripped throughout the rest of my life, getting involved in tournaments through work and playing with friends here and there, and lo and behold, I find myself working in it, years later.
Now, did you ever imagine when you look back now that you would be working for a golf company? Did you ever envision that as you were, growing up in your earlier days, and you were going to school and studying for, for your education? Did you ever imagine yourself being in the golf business?
Truthfully, not at all. I think for me, I grew up in probably the first generation of the internet dwellers, if you will,
Sure.
right? I grew up with video games, Nintendo, all these things. And, I was always in my own mind destined to be the world's biggest gamer or, a game developer. And there was something about, I think translating that into just the digital medium and technology that sort of kept me in it. And I think one thing led to another. And then, looking at something like sports tech or just technology in golf does have appeal to me. So I think there was a natural progression that sort of got me there. But yeah, if you asked my 13-year-old or 16-year-old self, I would have probably laughed at you.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously I'm a lot older than you are, and but I grew up very similar in the sense that my father was the one that introduced me to the game. He took me to the first driving range, the first golf course, and we played, and he taught me the game. And then my earlier memory was I wanted to battle out Nicklaus and Palmer, and all those guys were still prominent. And for me, it was like, I want to get out there and play with these guys. I remember watching Nicklaus in the the 70s and just being in awe. And of course, Arnie's Army, that was just it just blew me away. And then there was so many others. I mean, go down the whole list, but that was my first. And when I came to the realization that was not going to happen, the next best thing for me was to teach the game. So I've been teaching for 32 plus years. So I thought, well, I'm going to do the next best thing. So I always had golf kind of in my blood, but I just not to the degree I wanted it. But I'm just as happy with what I'm doing. So I want to fast forward a little bit, and I want to talk about blue tees in the sense, what is the history of blue tees? Give us a little bit of idea how it got started, sort of who came up with the idea, and why do you think they felt in such a competitive market, especially with technology, that they thought, hey, this is something we want to, tackle the beast head on?
That's a great question, Ted. And it's actually one of my favorite aspects of the brand, and truthfully, what drew me to it in the first place. Blue Tees got started, a few short years ago, call it 4.5 years. And really it was born out of 5 co-founders, childhood friends. They grew up playing the game, stayed close together. And, a couple of years ago, they were playing, and the thesis came up that it's like, you know what, why should we have to pay a premium price tag, north of $500 for golf tech? Or on the other side of that, go on a marketplace, pick your marketplace of choice and, find something that arguably falls apart after a couple of uses, or you drop it once and that's it.
Yep.
And, I think that was sort of the catalyst for the brand and the business. And, they looked at their collective skill sets across the board and said, you know what, we can do better. Right? We are golfers ourselves. We love the game. We know what we want as players. So let's go for it. And, from there, launched the first rangefinder under the Blue Tees banner. And then, one thing led to the next. Launched a GPS speaker, became, market leader in speakers, and have since moved on to a whole sort of other products in the portfolio, wearables, handhelds, and, some other stuff too. So really, really fascinating story to be able to look at a category and say, there's definitely an opportunity here that, we can try to do better for ourselves, and know that there's so many others like us, right? There's a whole new generation of golfers who, they care about the style and the aesthetic. They care about finding affordable, high performance technology that's easy to use and, looks good. So I think it, sort of becomes a natural extension of yourself, and what's in your bag. So that's sort of the long and short of the story.
It's really interesting. I did just a very quick side story. So just a few years ago, while you guys were up and coming in the market, I had acquired a couple of competitor rangefinders, and certainly good in their own right. And I remember I had an extra one, and I had reached out to somebody that I knew that was a golfer, and I said, "Hey, I've got this rangefinder, and just throw me a couple of bucks, and we'll call it even," type of thing. And the first thing out of their mouth, "Is it Blue Tee?" It was a young guy. He says, "Is it Blue Tees?" I said, "No, I'm not going to name the name," but I said it was one of the competitors, of course. No, never mind. And so that was a testament to your brand. I mean, you guys were only in the market a little while, and the guy, and this was one of the major competitors, and he just said, "No, that's okay." He said, and that was a good deal. So, I mean, it just goes to, you guys have done such a great job, not just with the technology and how far it's come from its earlier days, but how you've positioned yourselves. I know I've talked to other representatives from some of the founders and whatnot from Blue Tees, and one of the things that they're really proud about, obviously, is the fact that the technology is great. It's always growing, it's always developing, and that. But the fact that it was important for you guys to position yourself in the market in such a way that you wanted to make it affordable, because and I'm going to be bluntly honest here, the generations coming up are cheap when it comes to spending their money. I mean, my generation, hey, if it was $500, $600, yeah, okay, you cut the check and the credit card comes out, whatever. But you guys are much more frugal. I mean, you'll pay for good technology, but you also recognize that it has to be, the price point is very, very important. You're much more diligent about that than I think some of the older generations, and I give you a lot of props for that. And it's a very smart thing that you guys did, is you positioned yourself. It's not that you're dumping the stuff on the market dirt cheap or anything like that. You said, okay, there is a need in this market. There is a big need for this market, and we're going to position ourselves in such a way that we're not only going to come out and compete head to head with the big boys with this product, but we're going to create a price point that people won't even bat an eyelash at and say, okay, you know what, this is worth it. The technology is great, and I can afford this, so I can be part of that group as well. And that was very, very smart on your team. And I want to get your thoughts on that. Was that really something in the forefront of the mind when you guys were creating all of this?
Absolutely. And thanks for that. I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right, Ted. I think the entire brand was built around that sweet spot in the marketplace, right? How do you create something that's affordable, but has a great experience tied to it?
Right.
Because that's what, the audience is looking for. As we like to think about it, built to perform, price to play. And I think that's sort of how we tend to operate and how we really think about our entire portfolio and where we want to play in the market. How do we continue to push the bar for what a good experience or a good piece of technology looks like and feels like without ever having to compromise on the price point. And I think that's definitely been the underlying magic of the brand from a positioning perspective. And I'm so excited to see just us continuing to double down on that year after year after year.
Yeah, and it served you guys well. I mean, you guys went from one position to in the top positions. I mean, you guys and I don't look at the stats right now, but I think you're in around like within certainly the top three. I think you're number 2, if I'm not mistaken, in the top. So I mean, that is an incredible feat for a company that's only been out in the market for a few years to be able to come up and raise the ranks, because there's so much, as you know, so much competition now. But what I wanted to also sort of pick your brains on is you come in with a great product. You're always looking to improve that product, but you're looking to do it in such a way that what is it that the client really wants? What are they going to use? I mean, it's like cars. You can add a bunch of features in there, but half the stuff nobody ever uses, and they're paying for it. You guys were very methodical. So how much and how important was it to get a good feedback from your clientele? So how much research is R&D from your standpoint, and how much of it, let's reach out to our customers and find out what is it they really want?
It's wildly important. And I love that you brought that up. And I think that's part of the magic of our product development process is, like I mentioned before, right? We're building for ourselves as players first and
Sure.
foremost. So it's always great to have just that point of view, right? Where we know what we want, we know what we use, and features that we don't need or wouldn't want or don't need.
Right.
So I think it starts there. But we're very fortunate to be able to have a really great network and a community to be able to tap. So there's players within our community of all different formats, right? Some people are rangefinder users, some people don't care, right? And they'd rather a handheld. Right. So you start to get perspective from all different use cases, all different preferences. We have some amazing retail partners as well, folks that work in the pro shops. They hear from their customers what they're invested in and looking for, all the way up to some of our ambassadors and partners like, Sean Foley, former coach of Tiger Woods, right? Who is used to coaching the best of the best, right? And what they're looking for and what features and data ultimately matter. And, it becomes this really great sort of melting pot of all of these various data points and, looking at that and saying, okay, what do we do with this, right? What, how do you have discipline to say, well, we don't actually need these 17 features that someone else is looking to launch, because really players just want one thing, or they just want those two things. So for us, it's looking at those and say, let's give them the best experience they can around that. And then, anything else is extra value add, or, we can think about how it comes to life somewhere else.
I remember when you guys first brought out your speaker, and I thought to myself, yeah, this is cool, but I grew up obviously in the generation where it was like shh out in the golf course, and I'm not saying that this, people are blasting it at the top, but I'm sure there are a few, but and I thought to myself, okay, this is cute, this is catchy, it's a big seller. You guys moved really big into this market. What is it? I mean, what do you see the change in the market compared to, say, and I'm going to throw myself under the bus, and I'm in my 60s, so that gives you an idea of what generation I'm from. What is it about your generation that, is it about just having more fun out in the golf course, not taking yourself so serious? That doesn't mean you guys don't want to be competitive, and doesn't mean you don't want to play your best out there, but is it more about just, hey, let's have some fun. If we're going to be here for 4 hours, damn, we're going to have some fun while we're out here. Is that really what the thought process behind something like your speaker is about?
For sure. I think that's a huge part of it. I'd like to say that, although the soul of the game is the same. I think golf is changing, right? I think
Yeah.
golf more than ever has become more social, more expressive, more personalized. And you see a lot of different aspects and a lot of different various forms of the categories surrounding it that have led that. Things like Top Golf, things like, launch monitors, being able to play off the course, do
Yeah.
sim in your own garage or your own basement,
Yeah.
right? So, for us, and definitely, my generation, our generation, ones that come after me, we see that, right? We see people care about their group chats and their playlists and the vibe just as much as they care about their scores, right?
Yeah.
If not more, right? And I think a product like the speaker is, a great opportunity to serve both sides of that. So, there's something for everybody, right? Whether you're out for just a good time and you want to, have 4 hours of great experience with friends and not think about anything else, or you're like really trying to lower your handicap and you're really just trying to be the best you can, and it's a sense of personal accomplishment, or maybe even a little gloating or boasting in your friend circle. We've got something for you. We sort of have you covered there.
Yeah. And they're very, I mean, I've seen a lot of, speakers on the market, and it's definitely among the sharpest looking one out there. So you guys did a great job in your design team and that. I want to move into some of the other stuff that you guys have. Earlier in April, you guys launched the Playmaker Plus. That
Yep.
is the first swing-friendly golf GPS golf watch. Tell us about that. That's, again, another great component that you guys have come out in the market, and it's very well price pointed as well. Very affordable for anybody to really get into the market. But tell us about that, because that's a big deal as well.
For sure. Yeah, this year's been a great year for, across the board for just going a little bit wider in our portfolio. Definitely the Playmaker Plus is a good example of that. Right? This is the first product we're putting in the wearable category, and another example of building for ourselves. And I think one of the things we saw from a lot of consumers and a lot of our community, and just in general, people tend to have this hesitation around wearing a watch while they play because it impedes your swing, right? If the face is too big, sometimes it's weighty. So, you take it off, you throw it in your bag, or, you find a way around it. So for us, we think about the watch experience for us. First and foremost, it's like, let's make something that people want to wear, right?
Yeah.
So the weight factor and the form factor of, the industrial design was principle number one. How do we make it feel great? And some of the early feedback we actually got in it was like, I forgot it was on my wrist in the first place, which
Right.
for us is a great indicator that we're heading in the right direction. Secondly, from there, then take a lot of the foundational work and the data and the experience that we've already created through some of the other products, and say, how do we make that a great experience on the watch? So, you could very quickly track your shots, you get your distances, you can navigate to different greens, you're seeing the green, all of those things. Whether it's weather, it's sort of at your disposal without having to pull out your phone also,
Yeah.
which is another big factor for people, right? They don't want to they don't want to be that guy that has to go and pull out your phone while you're playing and sort of takes you out of the headspace. So I think that's sort of where we landed with the watch, and it's so far so good as far as just being able to play with it, and a lot of the feedback we've gotten from the community. And I think since we've launched it, we've learned a lot as well, and we've continued to just invest in doubling down on how we make it even better and better and better. And, we're constantly ear to the ground, listening to how players are using it, what feedback they're having, even things you can't predict, right? The way people are using it and, their movements on the course. So the team's been awesome at really just incorporating feedback as we go and just constantly rolling out new releases to make it as good as it possibly can be.
What's interesting about it too, Joe, is this, that, the one thing I found, and I give credit to your generation, is time is a much more important commodity to your generation than mine. I mean, hey, if we get 4.5, 5 hours out in a golf course, we were happy to get away from home and, whatever. But you guys have so many other things, and my generation is now too, of course, but just with the way times are. But what I've found is that, I've talked to a lot of young guys over the years, not only teaching the game, but just around the game. And one of the things that was important is, I've got other things in my life that I want to do. I don't want to be able to just be out on the golf course all the time. I want to play, yes, but I mean, I've got other things, other activities, friends, whatever it is I want to do. Do you think that one of the benefits of having that watch is that I can get the information I need quickly, I can get the shot, and I can get my round done not that it's speeding you up, but it's helping with slow play a little bit, because you're not having to fumble around, like you said, with some other device, or check this out, or wait for that, or see how the crow flies, or whatever the case is. That this technology is really helping the younger generation enjoy something, be able to do it in a quick manner, so that they can get on to other things, and other things that they may enjoy as well. Is that part of the sort of, and the reason I ask that is I'm really trying to pick your brains as a young man to think about, is that's really what's going on at Blue Tees, is you're trying to find a way to make the game fun, affordable, but at the same time respecting the fact that people have other things besides golf they may want to do.
Totally, Ted. And you hit the nail on the head with that, right? I think one of our core values as a team is keep it fun,
Yeah.
right? We're in this because we love the game, right? And we love everything that comes with playing. And I think, there's this constant battle of too much data, too much technicality versus just out for the enjoyment piece of it. So, we're always trying to figure out, how do you create a better experience for somebody and optimize it. And yeah, pace of play is definitely a concern,
Sure.
right? To some people,
Yep.
whether you're on a crowded course, every tee time is booked, you have this constant need and you feel a little bit of pressure. But yeah, the other side of it is we may have five other things going on that same day. How do you sneak in, 3 hours, 4 hours, and not burn the whole day? So, I think really for us, the underlying design philosophy of that is, how do you just take as much friction out of it and just let people enjoy the game,
Yeah.
or enjoy more conversations, and not be constantly like pulling out a device or fumbling, or navigating everything else besides thinking about their next shot.
Yeah.
So I think that's really a big piece of it, especially as we look at even just what's to come in the portfolio.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, you've got some great products. You're always, as I said, very innovative with your updates, and that brings me to, midsummer you did some updates with your major updates, actually, with your Ringer GPS handheld. That's I mean, we're switching gears here a little bit, but talk about that. What are some of the new features that have changed from the original Ringer that's come out? And you guys have to be pretty excited about that. I mean, this is another launch that you guys have done this season.
Yeah, wildly excited. So, I think the Ringer is a really great product that, can often be maybe overshadowed a little bit by the coolness or the vibe of the speaker. But, what we found is that, as a handheld, there was just so much opportunity to continue to optimize just the way people used it. So for us, and it's not even a new product, right? Where this was a free firmware update to anyone who already owned one. So we were able to build on an already awesome device and make it even better based on some of the feedback we were hearing. So things like taking the display of it and putting it in full color, right? Creating a lot more of a vibrant read when you might be out on a sunny day and you want to be able to look at your green view and see those distances in the shape of a green. So that was one piece of it. Another piece of it was shot tracking. Right? Shot tracking is one of those things that can be a great thing or a miserable thing, depending
Right.
on just if you have to keep up with it and remember to track shots. So we wanted to make that experience much easier. We increased the amount of shots that you can track, per hole. I think we moved from about 4 to 10. So
Mhm.
caters to golfers like me. Not telling you
Right.
my handicap is, but it certainly helps. Things just like connectivity, the overall user experience, wanting to make sure that it's just lightning fast. And to my
Yeah.
previous point, it's like, how do you take any additional swipes, taps, clicks, whatever it is out of the experience and just let people play the game, get their data quickly and just keep going. And I'd say the last big piece of this was, really connecting it in a much bigger way to our analytics platform and our game app experience. So really being able to take all the data that you're seeing or playing throughout a round and capture that in a way that you can go look at later, right? And say like, how did I do? How am I doing, right? Over the course of X amount of weeks or months, am I shooting lower scores? Am
Mhm.
I doing better? Am I doing worse in some cases? So really just wanted to start moving one step closer to the bigger picture for us. And that's really connecting and building just a super powerful ecosystem when it comes to all golf tech.
And you raise a couple of really interesting points, because from a coach's perspective, one of the things that we want to be able to do is to understand better when it comes to our players, the data points. What are they doing? How are they actually doing it? It's one thing to have a conversation, say, well, yeah, I didn't, I kind of sucked last Saturday. But if I can understand how their short game is really doing, how many shots that they're taking, and how many putts they're making and not making, and how many greens they're hitting, this sort of thing. When I can get a little bit of information, from that, these data points become valuable as a coach, because then I can tailor make what I need to do, make adjustments, and get them in the right path, as opposed to spending, lesson after lesson going down a rabbit hole that maybe they don't need to make changes in. So it becomes very valuable for the teaching side of the game, as well as the end user. And then the other thing, too, which is unique, is, again, you touched on this and you made a really great point. One of the things, and I hate this myself, is if you've got to spend 3 or 4 minutes going through 1,000 screens to get to what you want, that's a pain in the what. So if you can simplify that process, because that's a game changer right there in itself. If I got to go through 10,000 screens to get to what I want, I don't want it. I'm putting it down. It's not,
Right.
You know what I mean? The more user friendly, the quicker the pace, that sort of thing. So that's something, and I like the fact that that is something that you guys really paid attention to. And I understand that technology changes, when they first come out, they're a little bit different, but it sounds like you guys are really in the forefront of that. And it brings me to this. You guys participated in the PGA Summit this August, and you had the launch of Tips. Tell us what Tips is and why you guys did that, and why it's creating so much buzz.
Sure. So yeah, Tips another new addition to our family of brands here, right? Obviously starting in really affordable premium golf tech. For us, really thinking about where else can we add value to a golfer's life, and we talked about the value of the modern golfer's social circles, and they're doing more, right? There's often more than just a 9 or an 18 on the course, right? There's the weekend golf trips, there's bachelor party weekends, there's all sorts of other tournaments and events, and honestly, these people are just doing more in their everyday life. They may be going from work to the gym, to then playing around, right? So for us, we saw this opportunity to really just build on what we had already been offering to the market, and launching a new soft goods brand that can meet golfers where they're at and give them a little bit more, but go even wider than that, right? So for us, Tips is really this line that's inspired, same philosophy of Blue Tees as the parent brand, but really it's all about minimalist travel gear built for life on the go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're offering things in our first collection here. We have 8 pieces in the collection. Sure, things like shoe bags, or valuables pouches to be able to store maybe your Apple Watch or your wallet or your keys. Throw it in your golf bag, but we have two different styles of backpacks that are great for carry-ons, or just for everyday use. We have the commuter sling to be able to take to the gym, or use for maybe an extra shirt, or anything else you want to throw in there. We have a duffel bag, perfect for the weekend getaway. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of pieces just really trying to build on just the everyday life of modern golfers beyond just life on the course. So that's the where Tips is, and where it sits, and so far the reception's been really positive. We're super excited. It's just the beginning for us, and also definitely for a lot of our other partners, what we've been hearing is it makes great gifts from a promo side of things. So sure. We do offer the ability to custom brand the products as well, which is great for tournaments, great for gift giving. So just seem to really round out our portfolio a little bit more than just the technology piece as an overarching brand.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what it sounds like to me is what you're really trying to do here is to, as many people in the clothing and accessory end of the industry, is trying to make it so that it's not just necessarily geared for golf, but it becomes part of a lifestyle brand as well, so that they can use this for the pieces. Yeah, they might be great for on the golf course, but if they want to use it for other things as well, there's a lot of crossover, and that's important too, because you don't want to, like with golf clothing. I mean, I know growing up in that, when you had golf clothing, it was a typical polo shirt, things like that, and you could tell it was a golf shirt. You didn't wear it out anywhere except for at the golf course. Now a lot of brands coming out are, yeah, you can wear it in the golf course. It's still kind of some of them polo style, but it's also, especially in the women's market, it's interchangeable with other clothing. So people don't even know that you're out in the golf course. It becomes part of their lifestyle brand. And it sounds to me, really, that's what Tips is trying to do, is to create, and I could be wrong, but it sounds like that to me is what you're trying to do, is not only incorporate the versatility of what it does for your existing brand, but also gives them an opportunity to extend it out into other areas of their life. Would that be accurate?
Exactly, Ted. And I think you nailed it, right? The lifestyle piece of it is so integral to just how a lot of folks that are modern golfers and my generation thinks about it, right? Like I am wearing my golf shirt to work every day, not just because I work in golf, but
Right.
because it's comfortable, right? That's athleisure, right? So I think the more we start to integrate that into other aspects of our life, the more we feel empowered to just keep connecting those dots. And we want to keep playing, we want to keep going, we want to associate with others and be able to quickly hit the gym together, or they'll go play the back nine somewhere between meetings. So I think to your point, yeah, it's certainly a lifestyle, and I think the more we can embrace that and just meet our community and our audiences where they're at in every which way, I think it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, and it really says a lot to the versatility of your company, because it looks at, okay, they're not just building this, they're not just making that. That's great, but what happens if I don't do this? And it's something that even those that are not quite yet diehard golfers, they can say, I can relate to this. I can use these products even if I'm not I may not be into the technology right now because I'm not really playing golf much, but tips is something that, hey, I can get into, and my boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, we can use these together when we go on a trip. So again, it goes into that lifestyle thing. What I want to ask you, which is interesting, and speaking of as we look at upcoming generations, Nat, are you seeing through your own research a big uptick in female golfers coming to Blue Tees? I mean, obviously, first starting out, I'm sure it was predominantly male, but I imagine you're seeing a lot of young female golfers coming up through the mix as well. Are you seeing an uptick since you guys started, as the rest of the industry is on your side of things as well?
1000%. And, I think it's no secret when you look across all sorts of studies and just across the golf landscape in general, we're seeing an uptick in, female golfers. And, for us, it's really exciting as a brand because, we are philosophically for everyone, right? We want to be for the weekend warriors. We want to
Sure.
be for the casual golfers as much as the people chasing lower scores. So, yeah, as a marketer, right, I get really excited to see the diversity of perspective and of play, of skill levels, of genders, of regions and territories, and how they view golf as a game, and all the pieces of that. So for us, yeah, we're seeing it too, and it's exciting. And
Yeah.
we want to continue to double down on that and just reach our community and meet them where they're at. And through activations, through experiences, through content that they can look at the brand and say, yeah, that's me. Right. And I
Mhm.
think that's what resonates, and that's what continues to grow the community. And it becomes a really great flywheel of sorts for us.
Yeah, and that is important, and especially from not just marketing, but just from a brand itself, is you want to know that you're not just reaching. This is the mistake with a lot of companies, is they just sort of pigeonhole themselves into, we're going to just go after this group here, and you have to be able to be more diverse in your thinking, because if you want, and I hate to always use this as an example, but if you go back a few years ago, we all went through COVID. It was very difficult for a lot of people, some extremely difficult. But what it did for our industry is it really woke up the industry and said, you know what? Because we were very fortunate in the sense that people were able to go out and play golf, unlike many other industries that didn't have those same opportunities to be open or be taken advantage of. Golf really had sort of a second breath of air, because it not only were we able to get out and play for us diehard golfers, but it was able to introduce golf to a generation of people that didn't grow up like you did, where your dad introduced you, and that didn't know how to hold a golf club, but wanted just to get the heck out of the house and be able to do something. Said, oh, you know what, I'm going to go up to the range. Let's go up to the range, or let's go and play 9 holes. So it really introduced the game to people that had never had an introduction before. And that's exciting, especially for somebody like you guys, because it opened up a market that was never there before and gave you an opportunity to listen and say, what would you like? If you're going to come and play this game, how would you like your experience to be? And that, as a marketer, has to be pretty exciting. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you constantly need to be in tune to the cultural zeitgeist, if you will, right? And
Right.
I agree. I think COVID was one of those great inflection points for the golf industry in general. I mean, for us as a business too, right?
Sure.
We were born out of a lot of that same sentiment, like being able to have a little bit more time and to say, yeah, we can still play together, right? And to your point, whether people didn't have time before and now they can, or it became one of the few things you can still do and feel comfortable because of just being out in the open, it did open so many doors for the industry and for, I guess, opened everyone's eyes to the magic of the game when you finally get that feeling of you stripe one down the fairway and it becomes a little bit infectious, right? You want to keep
Yep.
doing it, and especially if you're doing it with friends too. So I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that got into the game, and I remember having some early conversations and them saying to me, you know what, I get out there and I really sucked, but you know what, I went out there and hit a couple of really good shots, and my friends and I were playing next Saturday. And I'm like, wow, never played the game before, never had a lesson, but now they're coming out and playing. So it did open a lot of doors and opportunities for great companies like yourself, and I think it speaks volumes. I would imagine, though, that being as busy as you guys are, and I'm going to ask you personally, because you alluded to your handicap is probably not what you would like it to be. One of the sayings that we have in the industry is, if you want to play a lot of golf, don't get in the golf business, because you're going to get so busy doing other things that you won't get to play yourself. Are you starting to find that now as the Blue Tees business is growing, that your game is suffering a little bit, not because of any technology you guys are putting out or any advantages, but you're just so gosh darn busy that you don't have time to get to the golf course as much as you'd like? Is that an accurate statement?
It is definitely an accurate statement. And, I think I look at it as a good thing. As much as I would definitely love to lower my handicap for sure, or get a little bit more time out there, it is a great time. And it's a really exciting time for us,
Yeah.
especially this coming year. And, I think we have a really big year in front of us, probably the biggest year ever in the history of the brand and the business. We're coming out of the gate strong next year. We've got some really interesting brand evolutions happening. We have an entirely new product portfolio. We have a new category that we're going to be entering and launching, and I'm so excited to start talking about some of this stuff. And most importantly for us, we're now for the first time taking the vision we've always had as a brand,
Mhm.
and we're actually making that the front and center of everything, from
Yeah.
our marketing and our content to our products themselves. So yeah, we've certainly have my hands full these days,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, you know what? There'll be a day when you'll be able to retire from all this. If you decide to do that, maybe you'll be able to ratchet your game up a little bit at that point. But and it's just a fact of life. But I think it's exciting for you guys. I know there's a lot of things that you probably can't talk about in the coming season quite yet. You've got some things that maybe are not quite ready to be out in the public forum, and we'll have to have you come back on when it's time, and we can talk about that. But what do you want people, if you had a minute, and I'm going to give you a minute, and you wanted to send a message out to my audience, why they should look up Blue Tees, and I'll get you to give the website at the end of it. But what would your pitch be to them? What would you want them to know about Blue Tees to get them and encourage them to come and at least take a look?
So I think beyond what we just talked about, right? Whether you're out for a good vibe, you're out to lower your scores, you're out for a combination of everything. Um, the thing I'm most excited for everybody to know and hear, especially moving into 2026 and beyond, is we have an ambitious goal. We're out to build what I would say is the most accessible and connected ecosystem in golf. And certainly a lot behind that, and a lot I'd love to talk about. But for us, we're trying to connect the dots between on season, off season, on course, off course, and really enable players to be able to take their data, whether they're training or whether they're playing on the course, and be able to just continue to refine that and just grow as a player, and connect with others as a community. So even if you're out there playing with three other people that you've never played with before, or you have a regular foursome, right, we have something for you, and we want to make sure that we can continue to gamify that and just grow that community experience in a way that's never been done before. So I'm super excited if anyone has any interest in being able to do that, and especially do it in a way that's affordable, won't break the bank, and really cares about just that sense of style and a great intuitive experience, then we're for you, for sure.
And the website?
blueteesgolf.com.
Simple
Definitely
as
give it a
that.
look.
Simple as that. Well, Joe, I want to thank you very much for coming on and sharing some insight, not only to Blue Tees, but into your experience as well, and into obviously the products. And they can go to blueteesgolf.com and see all of the things that we were talking about tonight and more. And I think there's going to be a lot of excitement coming on the horizon. I'm excited. I know, and we didn't touch into this, but this will be for the next conversation. But I know that AI is going to be playing a big proponent with a lot of companies moving forward, and I'm sure as equally involved in you guys as well. So we'll look forward to hear that as the changes come. But hang tight for a second. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. A special thanks to my earlier guests, Pete Buchanan and Alex Fisher, for joining me on the Coaches Corner panel. And my sincerest apologies for those that were tuning in for our travel segment tonight. Unfortunately, our guest had a little bit of difficulty. Unfortunately, he was not able to connect with us, but we'll reschedule and get him back on. And then, of course, a very special thank you to my featured guest, Joe Pilcavage from Blue Tees Golf, VP of Marketing. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to tune in each and every week here on the Riverside.fm network. And you can go to the iGolf Sports YouTube channel and subscribe, and you can get all of the shows, including tonight. Thanks for tuning into Golf Talk Live, and I will see you next week right here on the show. God bless everybody.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coaches Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.